This is Morning Motivation for Educators on the Bee Podcast Network. Learn about all the shows at beepodcastnetwork.com. You'll hear from a variety of formal and informal educators who help put this podcast together. If you'd like to contribute your voice to this show, please go to morningmotivationedu.com to apply.
I'm Danielle Newfer, an educator for over 20 years who went up against 2 bouts of serious teacher burnout before finally realizing that I needed to share what worked and what didn't with educators everywhere. This is when Teaching Well was born. At Teaching Well, I partner with schools who recognize that when teacher well-being is prioritized, true teaching and learning can happen. And there's nothing more integral to building this kind of school culture than finding ways to care for yourself in the midst of all the school day hustle and bustle. Building in these moments is what this show is all about, and what I hope to teach to you each time I get the opportunity to speak with you here. So with that, let's begin. When I was first starting as a teacher, I did the getting to know you activities, but I thought it was just something fun to do to get to know my students. Truth be told, I often thought they were kind of trite and outdated and a little silly. I was just kind of biding my time until I was officially, quote unquote, allowed to start challenging my students with giving them work. In my estimation, it was a nice and expected way to spend the first few class periods to warm up the students before we did the real work in my course. And this is the same thing I believed about creative pursuits in my life. I thought they were honestly a little bit of a waste of time. Something like a hobby was nice to have, but it couldn't or shouldn't take away from all the real work that was whatever was giving you an income or furthering the real and admirable pursuit of more knowledge or an advanced degree or certificate. Interestingly, what I've come now to believe is that the real work of teaching is the work that you do outside of the classroom. And the real work of classroom management can happen well before the kids are even embarking on your content. Let's first start with the creative pursuits. These quote-unquote hobbies, I'll call them for lack of a better word, are things that bring a little bit of joy and a little bit of flow to your life. But the impact and after effect lasts far longer than the actual session you spend on them. For every tiny 15-minute increment you spend engaging in a little watercolor practice before going to work in the morning, I gain hours of nervous system impact. Meaning there is an inherent quality of being that I take with me that far exceeds that minute time spent on the actual practice. There is what I like to call a residual effect. This same phenomenon seems to happen in our classrooms. Just like the amount of time you take to get to know a student is disproportionately related to the amount of impact this relationship building has on the rest of your student relationships throughout the school year. What I foolishly thought of as a nice and quote-unquote cute way to get to know students' names actually turned out to be a really great way to forge relationships, which may in turn create a community that will be the thing that can carry my classroom management system throughout my school year. Will these moments help with quelling all of the tension that is sure to ensue throughout the school year? No, of course not. But it's certain that without those moments, finding ways to connect with the students would be even more challenging. So how are these 2 ways we spend our time connected? Both of these endeavors equate into an immeasurable impact on your actual teaching practice and the quality of your teaching life. Finding time to dedicate to your own creative flow, whatever you deem that to be, and finding ways to connect to your students from the beginning are 2 of those activities that may not have a direct proportional outcome while you were actually engaging in them, but they are interest-bearing endeavors whose return on investment is sure to be great. So find those things that fill your creative bucket and take the time to truly get to know your students. For content area teachers, this can be especially challenging, but there is nothing that will make your teaching life richer than engaging in these activities. I'd love to hear more about your experience with the impact that unseen activities have on the rest of your teaching practice. If this morning's motivation resonated with you, I'd love to connect more. Schedule a time to connect at teachingwell.life/call and check out the show notes to find out how we can partner together.
Thanks for listening. And whatever role you have in education, we have a podcast for you at beepodcastnetwork.com. Who among your friends and colleagues needs to hear this message today? Please share it with them right now.